So, hello everyone, and thank you for coming to this webinar session brought to you by BELTA and with the support of Heike Philp of Let's Talk Online. My name is James Taylor and I am the President of BELTA, the Belgian English Language Teachers Association. Our aim is to encourage professional development through bringing English language professionals in Belgium together to discuss the things that matter to them, whether it's face-to-face, like at our BELTA Day, or online. We also want to connect Belgian teachers to the wider world of ELT, and that's why we offer this webinar series, where we can bring our members together with teachers from around the world to watch presentations from international speakers. So hello to all our members and to those of you joining us from outside Belgium. Before we begin, I want to mention our upcoming conference. Let me show you the slide. Okay, here it is. So on August 8th and 9th, BELTA and TESOL Toronto will be co-hosting our first ever joint online event on the theme of reading and writing. We'd love you to join us, so put it in your diary. And if you're interested in speaking, there's still time to put in your proposal. There's still a week to go. So go to our website. There's a link there on the slide, and you'll find all the details. Okay. So in this month's webinar, we are joined by Christina Rebuffet Broadus. Christina works as a freelance trainer in Grenoble, France. Throughout her 10 years of experience, she has reflected on ways to make business English courses relevant and responsive to learners' emerging needs, while still maintaining the structure and measurable objectives often required by human resource departments. She is the co-editor of the TESOL France newsletter, a member of ITEVL and of independent ELT publisher The Round. And together with Jenny Wright, who is, I know she's here in the room, she recently finished the book Experimental Practice in ELT, Walk on the Wild Side. She also blogs at ilovetefl.wordpress.com, and there's another link to that. Where is it? It's down. No, other way. That way. No, yeah, that way. In the corner. So today, Christina will be speaking about improving the quality and structure of business English classes in 7 tools for truly effective training courses. So please join me in welcoming Christina. Over to you. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, James. Thanks. Okay, so first of all, a big thank you to everyone who, let's say, is giving up a part of their Sunday, whether it's afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are, to join us. And I hope that you'll get some really useful, really concrete things out of this webinar, which will probably last just under an hour. And we'll also have some times for questions and answers. So I'll go ahead and get started. So before we actually get into the webinar, just a quick question, because I know that I've done webinars and I've always got something that I'm drinking. So just let's find out, what are you guys drinking right at the moment? And you can just type your answers here into the chat box, whether it's tea, coffee, water, iced coffee. Yeah, I thought about iced coffee, Vicky. Gazpacho, that's healthy. Hot chocolate. Malu, is it cold in Brazil? Because it's about 35 degrees Celsius where we are. I've got my nice little, I just wanted to show off my co-work in Grenoble mug. It's a group of co-workers, freelancers and independents here in Grenoble. Really nice group that I work with. And who are very supportive of my projects. So anyway, oh yeah, that's right, it's winter, exactly, Malu. 10 degrees, okay. Right, so we'll go ahead and jump right in. So as you can see, the title of today, it's 7 tools for truly effective training courses. And just out of chance, I would say, I went on to ELT Pics because I wanted to use some of their pictures for my slides, and I typed in training to find some maybe, pictures of guys in suits in a training meeting room. And I found a lot of pictures of trains, in fact, and not training. So the theme, I built the presentation around a train theme. So I hope you'll just kind of follow along with that today. So let's go ahead and have a look. First of all, we're going to look at a couple of different things today. what's hot with HR and what's hot with trainees, because it's not always the same thing. And part of our challenge is, as trainers in a business context, is to sort of reconcile these two and to help, find a nice happy place where everyone's happy, HR, the trainees, and the trainer themselves. Now, how do we do that? How do we, let's say, respond to the demand of what HR wants, the human resources, the people normally paying for the training? They want to know what they're buying, they want to see what was done, and they want some results because they're investing a lot of money. Trainees, on the other hand, they often want to come in and chat sometimes. They want something that's flexible, something that's not set in stone, that can adapt, and they like to do what they want to do, which is not always exactly what human resources wants to do. So that's our challenge. We're bending over backwards sometimes to combine the structure and the flexibility to sell a program to human resources that at the same time they know what they're getting, but that also gives us room as trainers for this emergent language, for the adaptability, and just being able to keep track of everything, for us as trainers, for our own sanity, and also for human resources, so that they can see what they're getting and what's been done actually. So that's sort of the challenge. Now, over 10 years of working in companies, I've developed or adapted some tools that that I use actually at the moment, that help me to keep track of everything, but that also help, let's say, mix a little bit of a dogma approach with, the business world and training. If for those of you who know me, I'm very much into dogma. I don't think dogma is the answer to everything, but I think that there are a lot of good ideas, that we can incorporate. Most notably, being reacting to what the students do in the lessons, reacting to their needs, and leaving room for that flexibility. So these are all documents that help to combine, what the human resources people want, all of that structure, and then what maybe us as trainers and what the trainees want as well. So all of that flexibility. So let's go ahead. And we're going to, like I said, the talk, it's sort of on a train theme, thanks to Sandy Millen, mostly for all of her pictures that she contributes to ELT Pics, and also to the fact that when we looked up training, you get pictures of trains. So the documents and the resources that I'll share with you, are sort of divided up into three themes, three categories. The first one's getting ready to ride. So these are all of your documents for kicking off your lessons, for planning your lessons, and for really getting everything ready before you start into the whole course itself. Then all aboard. These are our documents that you'll use in class with your training, with your trainees when you're in the lessons. And then, of course, any good captain has a captain's log to keep track of what's been done, where they're going, and any issues that came up. So those are our three categories. At the end of the presentation, I'll give you the blog address. My blog address is also down that way, I believe, on the bottom right. And you can go onto the blog and actually download the PDF versions of all of these documents so that you can print them out and use them in your own context. So we'll go through them together in the talk. If you have questions, also feel free to type any questions, and I'll answer those questions as we go. And then in the end, of course, please download the documents and take the ones that you find useful and use them, as they suit your context. All right, so here we go. We're going to get ready to ride with our documents for kicking off and planning our courses. Now, I always start off with what I call a And this is something that before we actually jump into the content of the course, that I spend some time with the trainee talking what sort of first lesson activities do you do with your trainees? Anyone? Any ideas? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's have a look. There we go. All right. So this is a document that I use in my zero lesson, which is really the first session, the first time that you go in to meet the trainees. And with this one, it's a bit small, but I hope you can see it. At the top of the document is all of the practical information about your trainees, their names, their phone numbers. And then at the bottom half of the document is what I call the fun stuff, the more personal information. You want to know what's their favorite? And you'll see in the document under favorite, there's a blank. Now, the idea here is that you can add anything. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite music? What's your favorite dish? Or for more advanced learners, something like what's your favorite aspect of your job? What's the favorite thing about working with colleagues? Anything, and you can adapt this to lower or higher levels depending on the types of questions you ask, the details that each person goes into in the responses, and just the information that is used to complete the document. You'll see under favorite, you ask about special talent or quality. This is a really hard question for a lot of people. I do this in my lessons regularly, and I have trouble answering this question each time. So they really get to think about themselves and what they want to share with you. It's the same thing, future projects or plans. Sometimes this can be quite personal, and that's okay because this is the activity that is to build rapport with your trainees. You're going to be working with them for an entire course. I always think it's good to know who you're working with, And for the trainees, it gives them the opportunity to learn about their trainer as not just the person there to teach them, but as a person themselves. And in fact, I wanted to share a really great quote by Mark Andrews that he posted on Facebook this week. I'm going to read it because it's great. Treat your students as people first, learners second, and learners of English third. And then maybe some English might get learned. So that's sort of the idea behind taking time to just get to know the students as well. And of course, some of this information, sometimes that you collect, you can integrate into future lessons to help make it really personal and really interesting for the students. So that's the first little activity that I like to do with my students. All right, the next is the needs discussion. This is where we start getting into the business stuff in the training course. I often will send this document, and again, you can download this document from my blog. I send this document to the trainees a week before the lessons actually start, and I tell them, just think about these questions. You'll see there are a couple of questions about their aims, the specific changes that they want to see, what they can do to make it happen, because I really believe in making the trainees responsible for their own learning, how they measure success and how I can measure success, and what concerns they have, the things that they're really worried about, and then also how I can help them. This could include anything from corrections, the ways they like to be corrected, the resources if they want resources to help themselves, anything really that the trainee wants to ask you to do for them. Now, when I send this, I tell them, don't worry about filling it in complete detail, because it will become part of a discussion in the first lesson. And often they really listen. For example, and I'm sure you can relate to this, what specific changes do you want to see? They'll put, I want to be more fluent in English, or I want more vocabulary. Does this sound familiar to you? Because this is what I get all the time. So don't worry about it. Yeah, exactly, Vicki. You see what I'm saying. They always want to be more fluent, and they want more vocabulary, and maybe they want to feel more confident. So either they can send that, and they want it in a week, exactly right. So we're not miracle workers, but we do what we can. Yeah, to be fluent also. And so I send this to them. I tell them to think about it, write some notes, and then to print out the document or bring it in a digital format. Bring it to the first lesson, and we'll talk about it. And that's where you get the really interesting responses to these questions. I always think, I don't let myself settle for these responses of, I want to be fluent, or I want more vocabulary. But I'm going to ask them, okay, well, maybe how do you define fluency? Or in what situations do you want to be more fluent? Or, okay, you want more vocabulary, but for what context? What vocabulary do you feel that you're missing now that you would like to acquire by the end of this course? And then all of this information, together with the student, you complete this document so that you know what's in the document and they know what's in the document, and you're both on the same wavelength. And then this is what we'll use to complete the next document, which is the program storyboard. It looks like a storyboard, and you can see that there's a 0. This is our 0 lesson for the pair work interview activity, and for discussing the questions about what they want to work on and their objectives. That's the 0 lesson. Then you can start, together with the trainees, completing this document, deciding what you're going to work on in each session so that it is organized, but at the same time, it's working with the trainee to help them define their objectives and build the course around their objectives. Now, in this document, you see there are 11 boxes plus the 0 lesson. You know, for me as a teacher, this is my job. I do this kind of thing. I find it's really hard for me to say, well, what do I want to be working on in the 11th lesson if we're just starting today? That's almost impossible to do for some people. So you don't have to complete everything. Complete maybe one module. For example, here, we've got a program for an imaginary student that I call BELTA. And this student, you can see, has gotten a couple of modules going, but also some room for flexibility. We don't know what we're going to work on at the end of the course because we don't know what's going to come up, but we can leave some to be determined boxes that you can complete. Yeah, thanks, James. I worked really hard on the name of the student there. But some room for flexibility to have another discussion of what are your objectives for the next part of the course. Now, you can see the program for this student. Can you find the modules? What different modules are we going to be working on with this student? I'll let you look and then type your answers in the chat box. Okay, do you see any modules? Let's have a look. All right, so there's one module. They wanted one module on going out with customers. So explaining a menu, understanding and following a conversation, and then a role play. Right, talking about your weekend. Yep, James, that's it. That's the next module. Everything that's socializing, talking about your weekend, vocabulary, listening and understanding, and then actually carrying out a conversation, you know, on Monday morning around the coffee machine with your international colleagues. Then, finally, you can see after those two modules, we've got a consolidation. So we worked on two modules that are specifically on socializing, and then we've got consolidation, which is basically a lot of role plays, recording the role plays, and then getting feedback from the student about their progress and maybe the things that they need to continue to work on. So, okay, thanks, Vicki, thanks. So this is just a way that you can show them the progress that they've made, but that also so they can see the progress. And that all goes back to being able to give it the structure and to show them that they are making progress. Because it's true that with language learning, it's not always easy to really see concrete progress. And then, of course, after that consolidation, we might have a chat to see, well, what's the next part of the program? What are your objectives now? What do you want to work on? And then we would spend a little time in that lesson just completing the squares 8, 9, 10, and 11. Or just 8 and 9, or just 8. It doesn't matter. But the idea is that you give that flexibility, but at the same time, you know where you're going, and the trainee knows where they're going also. All right, so that's the first part of these documents, the getting ready to write. Do you have any questions about these first documents before we move on to the next set? Okay, so a couple of questions may be coming. We'll go ahead and then, like I said, this document, in fact, is something that you can also share with the Human Resources Department. If they want to see what's on the program, go ahead and share this with them. Now, this means that you might have to create this document in the language, not the target language, but the language of your trainees and the language of their HR departments. But that's something that perhaps you can do because you speak the local language, or hopefully you would be able to find a friend or a colleague who could help you with that. David, would you plan all 7 boxes at the beginning? Not necessarily, no. It just happened, this is an actual program, in fact, from a student. Of course, the student was not named BELTA, but it is a real program. We did plan those 7 boxes at the beginning, but you don't have to. Sometimes the student only knows what they want to do for the next 1 or 2 lessons, and that's okay. Just put that on the program, and then at the end of the second lesson, just have a chat with them and find out what they want to do in the next part, and then complete the program for the next box, the next 2 boxes, or whatever that they feel that they know what they want to do. So it's completely flexible now. This one, the student just happened to have a pretty good idea of what he wanted to do. Okay, next is all aboard. These are the documents that you'll use in your class. You're welcome, David. Now the first thing is a lesson record. Now you can see this lesson record is got a couple of different parts. And going from top to bottom, you'll see the basic information, the date, the lesson number, the client, etc. This is something that you will fill in before the lesson. Now, this document is also going to be a joint effort between you and your trainee, and it helps a lot of ways, I think, to consolidate the language, consolidates all of the communication, discourse as well, because you can make all sorts of notes about what happens, and it's just a good way to track progress as the lessons go. In fact, you do one of these for each lesson. Now, just to see what you as a trainer complete. The basic information at the top. In these boxes, you'll complete the materials used. This is mostly for your own record, but also it could be for the student. If you use a video, for example, write the name of the video. They can go and find it in YouTube. So fill in the materials used, and then the action plan for the next meeting. So this is really the homework. But it's just been dressed up in sort of, business speak. It's an action plan for the next meeting and not the homework for the next class session. Below that, you'll see there are 3 columns: new expressions, learning opportunities, notes, and corrections. Now, you as a trainer, you'll fill in the middle column, which is the learning opportunities. It can be mistakes. For example, your trainee says, I work here for 10 years. And you say, no, I've been working here for 10 years. So you could just write that in the middle column. Of course, after, they're going to go in and do the notes and corrections to correct these mistakes, which is the 3rd column. It could also, like I said, it's also opportunities. So for perhaps something the student says that is perfectly okay. I want a coffee. The message is clear. Grammatically, it's pretty sound. But maybe there's an opportunity to introduce the idea of polite language. So I would like a coffee. And again, you can note that in your learning opportunities. I generally just underline the place where, let's say, the incident occurred to help to draw their attention to that so they know what to do in their notes and corrections. Then, what the trainees complete. All of this. The new expressions, like I said, this is a joint effort. So in the lesson, as new vocabulary is encountered, they write that vocabulary in the new expressions. I always tell them also, don't just write the word. Write either a definition, an example, it can be a translation, or it can be a little drawing. Anything that helps them remember what the new expression is, what it means. Because if they just have a list of words, they forget after a week. So they do that. And then also the notes and corrections. This is always part of their action plan for the next meeting, is to go back, look at those learning opportunities again, and try to remember what the incident was and what the correction was. So that's that document. And then This part, the bottom part, you'll complete during the lesson with the students or the trainees. After the lesson, you'll complete what was used, their action plan for the next meeting. And I forgot one. Today I learned. This the trainee completes. I always give them a few minutes at the end of the lesson to reflect on the lesson and to note down what they learned. Sometimes they put specific examples of vocabulary, but sometimes they just say, I learned about different ways to request things, or I learned expressions for running a meeting. And that's okay. It can be as specific or as general, but the idea is that they're just reflecting on what did I achieve today. And and then, of course, at home, that's where they do their notes and their corrections. So that's in class. Here's an example. This is a real example from a lesson. You can see in the new expressions both my handwriting and the trainee's handwriting, so that, like I said, a joint effort. And in the middle, it's all my handwriting on different incidents that we worked on. In this case, it was a lot of pronunciation and third conditional. So, and then you can see up in the box that says, today I learned what the student thought they had accomplished at the end of that lesson. All right. So that's something you'll use in every lesson, or I use in every lesson. And then for the module consolidation, so this goes back to our storyboard program. You remember we had that green module consolidation. So this is a standalone lesson, meaning it's all on its own. And this is the opportunity where you can consolidate everything that you worked on, the discourse, the communication skills, the vocabulary, everything. I record this. Now, I can either do it with a little flip cam. You can get a flip cam for relatively inexpensive, and they're brilliant in lessons because if you see like the one in the picture, it's got a USB key. You just pop it into your computer or your trainee's computer, and you give that to them so that they can have the video as well. If you don't have a flip cam, perhaps you've got a smartphone or even a simple voice recorder, and then you just record the audio of this. And again, this is something, exactly, Andrew, these are all documents that you could show to HR to track their progress. Future clients, I would be sure to get permission from your current clients about sharing this with them, or simply, like I've done today, remove the names so that it all remains anonymous. But yeah, it's a great marketing tool as well. So then this helps you to share and track their progress throughout the course. You can go back and listen to those first courses, the first lessons, and then compare those with listening to the last lessons just to see what progress that the students have made. So that's that one. And then finally, the last in-class tool today is, I call it the module that was. I didn't invent that term. That is completely borrowed from Scott Thornberry and Luke Meddings in their book, Teaching Unplugged. They talk about the lesson that was, and it's basically a document that helps compile and reflect on everything that happened in the lesson. But in here, it's in the modules. So we would fill this out at the end of each module. You fill it in using those lesson records, the document with the 3 columns, to note down really the key expressions, the ones that the trainees really want to remember. Again, the errors. You might have a lot of errors, these learning opportunities. If you've got some recurrent errors or some ones that the trainee says, I know that's not correct and I just really need to concentrate on it, this is where you can put that so that the trainee knows I really need to focus on these errors. At the bottom right is the observation notes. So this is what they would complete based on watching or listening to the consolidation recording. They might notice, oh, my intonation's a little flat, or I don't pronounce these words correctly, or I say a lot, which is, very common. So this is where they can just note down their observations and uh, try to work on those as the course progresses. And then, of course, at the bottom left, it's just notes. Very general. This is, again, leaving room for flexibility. Maybe it's grammar notes, maybe it's pronunciation, maybe it's discourse, maybe it's vocabulary, faux amis, faux friends, sorry, a bit of French there. But it's anything else that they want to note. And then, of course, in the middle, very clear, is the module. So, for example, the module that we looked at in the program could be socializing. Simple as that. And then this is sort of with the recording and with this document really brings it all together to close that module, to see what's been accomplished and what needs a little more work in the future. But it helps you, helps the trainee, and also can help HR to understand what's been done and to keep track of everything. Now, that's the end of the all aboard lessons, documents, so the in-class lesson documents. Any questions about how to use any of these documents or any suggestions of your own? These are my suggestions, but you might have some of your own ideas as well seeing these documents. And if you've got any questions or suggestions, go ahead and share those with us in the chat box. And after that, we'll go on and move on to the next part. Are these all used in one-to-one classes? Not necessarily, David. I found that for example, the lesson record, the one with the 3 columns, I have difficulties completing it when I'm working with a group because I'm often, circulating, monitoring, working with the groups, etc. So I'll often keep that for the end of the lesson, and again, we'll go back and maybe take 10 minutes to fill in a few new expressions and a few really recurrent errors, the ones that really stuck out during that lesson. So with a group lesson, I can use it, but I also use it a lot more with one-to-one lessons, and I find it's actually easier because you're sitting there with the student and you're filling it out together. But it can be used with groups and with one-to-ones. Andrew, my documents, yes, they do, in fact. I've got my name, and I don't have a logo yet, but I'm hoping to get one soon. But they do carry the logo and company name, just that's part of my branding of myself as a trainer. These, however, do not. The ones on the PDFs, they do not. I think they just have my name and blog at the bottom for you to, find them again if you want to. But I would suggest, yes, do put your logo on them, put your name on them, and use those as marketing tools as well. They're fabulous for marketing tools. Yeah, thanks, Vicki. All right, let's go ahead and we'll have a look at the third part, the final part, and the final document, which is, again, keeping with the train theme, is the captain's course log. These are your own notes. And we'll have a look. This is a document that I keep for myself. The trainees don't see this. HR generally does not see this because I'm going to be keeping really sometimes quite personal notes. If I say, for example, oh, well, Jean-Francois, he came into the lesson, but he seemed very disturbed by something. I think he had a bad meeting just before the lesson. I'll note that so that I can see and I can understand that maybe if the lesson didn't go as well as I hoped, that maybe there was a reason for that. Sometimes the trainees will come in and they say, I've got a big presentation just after this. I'm sorry, I should have canceled the lesson, but I really won't be able to concentrate, but you're here, let's do the lesson anyway. And then, of course, well, you know how it is. They don't concentrate on English. They're mulling over their presentation that they have to do just after. So I would keep notes like that on this document, just to know that if there's a lag in performance, then maybe that's why. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, if something in a lesson goes wrong, sometimes it's the trainer's fault. Sure, that happens. But it's not always the trainer's fault. These people are really busy. They've got lots of pressure on them, and English is just one part of their day. So I like to, if I see that they're not feeling so well, just kind of ask, are you okay today? Is everything okay? And I think, again, that's part of just having that human relationship with these people, and not just seeing them as clients or business people or guinea pigs, So anyway, so for the document, like I said, this is your course log. This is you complete after the lesson, if possible, right after the lesson, so that it's fresh. You'll see there's going on the document the date, the time of the lesson, class format. It could be face-to-face. Maybe you do telephone lessons. Maybe it's a group lesson. Just a note about the format. And then a note about, again, the language that came up, the subjects that you talked about, if they were the same as planned on the storyboard program, or if you digressed a little bit. Maybe on the program it was planned to work on telephone language, but the student came in and said, sorry, I've got this giant presentation tomorrow. It's in English. Can we look at my slides? And of course you say, yes, you want to be flexible. So you'll have a look at their slides, and then just make a note. We took a break from the storyboard because Jean-Francois wanted to look at his slides. And then again, you can also note the language that came up, the language that emerged, what they were having difficulties with, what they need reinforcing, maybe some accomplishments as well, things that they're really starting to get. I would keep these notes for myself. And then materials used, again, just a reminder for yourself of the materials. Your homework, here it's homework, it's not an action plan, so back to the teacher talk. The homework that you gave them, and then, like I said, ideas for next time. If you're completing this right after you finish a lesson, you might think, oh, I've got a great activity that really suits what's coming up in the program. Let me scribble it down. This, I find, saves a lot of energy because I'm not thinking the night before, oh God, what am I going to do with this client tomorrow at 8 o'clock? I've got my idea because I wrote it when we finished the previous lesson. And that way it helps also to ensure, smooth continuity between a program that is at the same time flexible and adapting to whatever the training needs and what they want. This is also really good if you get repeat customers, people that come back and work with you over maybe several courses, several years even. Um, it helps you to keep track of everything that you've done with them, and especially for the materials, so you don't show up on Monday and they go, wait, didn't we do this last year? Just a good way to keep track within a course, but also over several courses if you have repeat customers. All right, and just to show you, I think I've got an example. This is an example that you can see. It's an actual course log from a course that you can see it's ongoing at the moment. Our last lesson was on June 2nd. So I'll just give you a minute to have a look at what I've written here and see if you have any questions about using this document. Okay. No questions? Just a note, you'll see on this document, it's a lot of abbreviations, scribbles, references to activities that I know what they are. You might not know what they are, but that's okay. Because like I said, this is the document that's for you. It's very personal. As long as you can read it and understand it, that's what's important. So, this is where you would record all of the teacher speak that nobody else understands. All right, so that brings us to the end of the webinar. It was was 7 tools for truly effective training courses. Just as a recap, we went through a few documents to help you prepare and kick off getting ready to ride. The all aboard, those documents for use in the course with your trainees, and then of course your captain's log, which is your own document that you keep and that you make notes on to help you organize and stay organized and just save your sanity, but at the same time have the flexibility that your trainees like, and keep the records, the structure that HR often wants to see, perhaps before and after. All right, like I said, all these documents are available on my blog. You'll see it, it's down at the bottom, ilovetefl.wordpress.com. They're all in PDFs, so you can download the PDFs. If, however, you want the Word version so that you can modify them or put your logo on them, feel free just to send me an email or a comment on the blog. I'll put my email on here right now. I'll just type that for you at gmail.com. There you go. That's my email address. Send me an email if you want the Word documents so that you can modify them for yourselves, and I will be more than happy to share those with you. So thank you all very much for spending a bit of your Sunday with us. I hope that you found something interesting, and if, like I said, you don't have to use all the documents. You can just use one or two. But again, I hope that you will find something that you can use and adapt as suits your context. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it.
So thank you, Christina. That was great. If you have any questions, then you can type your questions on the left side there in the box, and Christina will answer those. I have a question for you now, while hopefully some people will be adding some questions on the left, and
Yeah,
that's
sure.
it's about motivation. I think I do a few in company lessons as well, and I think anyone who's been in that situation knows that one of the problems may be the student's motivation, because the motivation may not be coming from them, but maybe coming externally from their boss or someone who's telling them that they need to be having English lessons. So I'm wondering, how do you find that your documentation and the way you organize your courses helps with the students' motivation?
Well, I think it shows them, and I do actually spend some time in those first lessons explaining the way that we work together. Um, and I think just showing them that, yes, you've been sent here by your HR. You don't really want to be here, but my job is to make it as painless as possible. So by showing them that, their input and their participation is really a key element to the success of the course. By showing them that, by also being able to show them the progress they've made, and actually giving them something that they can take away. So in the form of the lesson record and then the recordings, um, I think I found that helps them to, at least they see their progress. Maybe it's not going to make them love their English lessons if they just don't, but it's at least something that helps them see that there is structure, there is a progression, and at the same time, I'm not just there feeding them something that HR has told me to give them, but that it's really a collaboration and that we're working together to help them progress the way that they need to progress and on the subjects that they need to progress.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you very much, Christina.
Okay, thank you. My pleasure. Yeah.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this BELTA webinar, and of course to Christina for that terrific presentation. It was really interesting, and I'm sure, like me, you found it really useful. I'm definitely going to take something away for my work. If you'd like to know more about BELTA, remember to visit our website, beltabelgium.com. Let me just bring up the slide. Oops. Oh, You do. Leave it. Leave it. I'll do it. Here we go. Okay.
You move on. I won't touch them anymore.
So, so if you'd like to know more about BELTA, remember to visit our website, beltabelgium.com, our Facebook and Twitter pages. There are links to those down there on the bottom right corner. And remember to join us on August 8th and 9th for our first online conference with TESOL Toronto. Here's the info here. If you want to become a speaker, it's a great opportunity to try this out. If you fancy being an online speaker for the first time, then this is a great opportunity. There's a link here on this slide where you can complete the form. We'd love you to join us, and you'll see that in the next few months we have a whole series of Sundays with BELTA webinars coming up, including my friend Marek. Let's try his surname. There we go. Marek. No, it is embarrassing. Rose Bard, Adam Simpson, and another great speakers. And yeah, so thank you, Christina. Thanks for everyone for coming. There's the link if you want to be a speaker. And we'll see you on August 8th and 9th. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.